Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. A very warm welcome to Thursday's edition of the DCU Daily. You can follow me on X Twitter at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. Hello to you. Today isn't necessarily the kind of conversation we're going to have today. Isn't directly affecting the DCU, but it affects the DCU. I think everyone who loves comic book movies knows there's a Captain America film out right now, and yesterday it was confirmed that it had a rotten score from verified critics on Rotten Tomato. Not that I put much basis or confidence in these kind of accumulator sites. You know, the era of Rotten Tomatoes, I hate it. I hate when people try and stack pad for their favourite directors or their favourite movies. I find it pathetic. But what's ironic is the MCU in its peak was the darling of Rotten Tomatoes. It was used as a stamp of quality. Look, verified on Rotten Tomatoes. It must be good, right? You snobs, you're saying Marvel's crap. Look, Rotten Tomatoes. A rotten score of 48% on Rotten Tomatoes. But this just doesn't say something about the MCU. It says something about comic book movies in general. Because there hasn't been very many successful comic book movies in the past, let's say, 5 years? Should we say 5 years? There's been Joker. There's been The Batman. There's been Guardians Volume 3. Most of them have either flopped or they've had middle of the road box office. But why is that? The MCU was making a lot of money. If we focus on the MCU for now, the mistake they made after Endgame was they should have went Fantastic Four. They should have jumped on a new Earth, a parallel Earth, the multiverse, right? New Earth, Fantastic Four, like they're doing with that Fantastic Four movie. After Endgame, now I can't remember if they bought Fox out at that point, but if they didn't, they should have just waited until they did. There would have been nothing wrong with having a 2, 3, 5 year gap between Endgame and the next movie. And when they constructed Fantastic Four, they should have jumped on a new Earth, like they're doing now, but instead of what they're going to do, which is basically, we all know Galactus is going to destroy the Earth, the Fantastic Four and the X-Men are on, and they're going to jump and go back to the main MCU Earth. I think that's a big mistake, because that's an opportunity to jump on a new Earth and leave everything behind. Leave Phase 4 behind, leave Phase 5 behind, which has been a disaster, and start again on a new Earth and not make the same mistakes they've already made. But what they should have done after Endgame is jump on a Fantastic Four movie and a brand new Earth, leaving the old one behind. You've done that story. You called the movie Endgame. It's the end. And if you want to use some of the same actors for different roles on this new Earth, fair enough. But that's what they should have done. But even now, that's not what they're going to do. They're going to go, they're going to take the Fantastic Four and the X-Men to their main Earth. As I say, this is a huge mistake. In a way, Feige knows, or Feige, or however you say his damn name, knows that the Captain America movie is a disaster. And they know that, and they're just hoping to get their money back and make a slight profit. It may not even do that now. It's been predicted for a 90 million domestic 3-day weekend. Is it President's Weekend? It's an extended weekend, whatever it is, right? 4-day weekend. So what they'll do is they'll stack pad. They'll add it because it's a longer weekend. And go, oh, look what we're making. But in reality, it's not good. But now the score's rotten, the film may flop completely. Another comic book movie flopping. And right here and right now, I'm going to explain to you why. I said this when the DCU was announced. People are bored with connected comic book movie universes. Now, Feige destroyed that. Feige built it, or he takes the credit for it. I don't know who the geniuses really are behind it, but, he built this franchise up, which consists, now in the early days of the MCU, it was great because they were proper movies. They still had cameos and they were still building up to the next movies, but they focused on each movie. The reason the first Iron Man is so successful because people want to go and see a Robert Downey Jr. movie. Even though he was a disgraced actor, you know, Robert Downey Jr. was a great young actor. Should have at least been nominated for an Oscar for his performance as Charlie Chaplin. That's the biggest crime I've ever heard. Great performance, great actor. That was great casting. People went back to see him in Iron Man 2 and in Iron Man 3, even though those movies weren't as good as the first one. People wanted to see Chris Evans as Captain America. The first one was kind of controversial. A lot of Marvel fans didn't like it. I love it. So this is why people went back to see him for a second movie. And actually, unlike the Iron Man, trilogy, the Captain America trilogy just got better and better and better, didn't it? People wanted to see him. People want Steve Rogers as Captain America. What did they do? They got Anthony Mackie to be, they made Sam Wilson the new Captain America. People don't want it. It's comic book accurate, but people never wanted it. But here's another problem as well with Anthony Mackie. People are not going to rush to cinemas to see Anthony Mackie. People will rush to cinemas to see Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth because they've got that aura about them. Now, Chris Hemsworth's made a lot of movies that haven't done very well, but when it comes to Thor, people went to see Thor. They went to see Thor 2, even though it's not great, and people went to see Thor 3, which was a much better movie, wasn't it? Personally, the only good thing about it from my point of view is that the Incredible Hulk was in it and he spoke. But there's been a lot of mistakes since Endgame, not after Endgame, but since Endgame, that made people become bored. Because even after Endgame, the film, I'm an Iron Man, all that jazz, everyone's excited, people are cheering in cinemas, people want more. So if he just jumped to a new Earth with Fantastic Four and created a new story and worked in the way he did originally, it would have been fine. So Feige and the people he brought in, because he brought in people, and I'm not talking about the actors, but he brought in people behind the scenes that weren't as talented as people like the Russos and Joss Whedon. Now, you may not like Joss Whedon, but he's a talented writer-director. You can't say that about the man. But when you're bringing in lesser people, when you start casting and employing people on diversity, there's a problem because the DEI structures simply do not work. Because I want to start my own entertainment company, Movies TV Mad, as I've told you before. I want to make television, I want to make films. For me, the best DEI is to employ and cast the best people for the job. Not just the most talented, but the ones with the right character that are going to work as part of a team. And we don't want divas, do we? We don't want Blake Lively. But I think if you cast and employ the best people, some of those people will be black, Asian, trans, gay, straight, or white. If you cast and employ in life with your companies the best people, and as long as you don't see someone of a different colour or a different gender or anything like that, and then you don't give them the job because of how they identify as, that's a problem. But as long as you cast and in life you employ the best people for the job, then you've already got automatic diversity. He brought in activists. This is what Disney wanted. I don't really blame Feige. He's in control of Marvel Studios, and I think, actually, right, even though he's in control of Marvel Studios, the biggest mistake he made was become president of Marvel Studios. From that moment, the films started to lose quality. Even in Phase 3, I was beginning to get bored with the whole, it's another movie. They just became another movie. They weren't events anymore. It was just the next movie. You just went there because you needed to know what was going to, what the whole story was. And that's it. And they made money because of that. But after Endgame, they lost the confidence of the audience. The movies became so bland, so CGI based, and not great CGI. And then another problem was, of course, they started continuing the franchise on Disney Plus. So they were making a lot of stuff that didn't have the same quality. They called it the Marvel Cinematic Universe for a reason. And I've spoken before about what a big problem streaming has become in that context, in the context of the Harry Potter streaming series, for example, which I think is a terrible idea. I really do. Taking that franchise away from cinema, I think is a huge problem. And I think that J.K. Rowling was getting revenge on the cast members who didn't back her on her certain political stances right now. So I think that's what happened there, and I think that's why they decided to do the reboot. Yeah, it's that kind of industry, I'm afraid. It's a very vindictive industry. So now you've got this Captain America movie that's probably going to flop. We could be in a situation this year that we don't have a successful comic book movie. I think, and I said this when the DCU was announced, people want to see comic book movies in general, with singular visions, written and directed by someone who has a vision. This is what I said about the DCU as well. James Gunn's making a Superman movie to launch the DCU. He doesn't have a singular vision for Superman. Snyder, Goyer and Nolan had a singular vision for Superman in Man of Steel. Whether you liked that singular vision or not is irrelevant. I'd rather back a movie with a singular vision instead of a movie that just exists because they need to make money. If you make a great movie with a singular vision, people will love it and it will make money. So the business works and the art form continues. And this is why Hollywood is dying a slow, painful death. It's why comic book movies are not as successful as they once was. It is no surprise to me that this Captain America movie will probably fail when it has a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. You can no longer fool the public with these early reactions. If I was studios, I wouldn't even let these influencers and these other people, these critics, go and see these movies early. Because they're not helping. Those positive early reactions are fake. We saw it with the Flash movie. They tried to, basically, they used Red Hulk in the marketing. He's barely in 7 minutes of the movie. They lied to the audience. And it's very ironic to me if we talk about the Hulk for a split second. The best Incredible Hulk of all time is Lou Ferrigno. He was the greatest special effect, much better than all these CGI rendered Hulks we're seeing today. Bill Bixby is the best Banner ever. Because it's interesting actually, because Bill's Banner didn't speak a lot of dialogue, but you saw the struggle within Bill's Banner. The way he was conflicted, he was two people. He kept on moving around. It was amazing. Bill Bixby was class, and so was Lou Ferrigno. And they put Harrison Ford in this movie, hoping for the best. And it's also kind of Incredible Hulk, Ed Norton Incredible Hulk sequel as well. But you know, people are not fooled by that. You know, you're selling it as a Captain America film, but you're adding these kind of tidbits of a film that wasn't successful enough to make a sequel out of. You fired Ed Norton. Ed Norton warned Feige what would happen, right? With the direction he wanted to go with the Hulk. They fell out and Norton lost his position. Now look at it. Ed Norton was absolutely right. But I'll go back to my original point that I wanted to say. People lack interest in these, you know, tomato ketchup processed comic book movies. It's not what people want to see. They want to see comic book movies with singular visions. You wait and see how much money the Batman 2 will make. A lot of money. Because Matt Reeves will not betray his vision. Robert Pattinson will not become the DCU Batman. Nor should he. Where is the DCU Batman? He doesn't exist. That's something else we've discussed. So this is why I think the DCU is in trouble before it's begun. Who wants this? There's a lot of noise coming from a lot of stands, a very excited stand base. But when it comes to the general audience, who wants this? People want to go and see a movie because they're going to enjoy it. They're not going to go and see a movie just because you've said to them, oh look, we've made another one. Be a good boy or girl. Go out and see it for us. That's not how entertainment consumption works or should work.